Hey guys, Dr. Andy here. Today we are joined by Scott Barbee. He is the owner of the CrossFit gym right around the corner. It is CrossFit 584. Scott, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man. So today, in the past, I've done the more kind of interviews where I'm like, hey, tell me about your business or this, that. Now, we did an interview like that maybe like a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
Today, I want you to help me cover a topic that is super important because it's actually a lot of the patients that I have kind of go through this, and that is recovering from some kind of fitness-related
Yeah,
injury. So thank you for volunteering to help me kind of cover this topic.
absolutely, man. It's a very tough topic to nail. I mean, there's so many options and so many directions to go in with that. So yeah, it'll be a fun conversation.
Someone once told me that CrossFit has like a 19% injury rate. Now, I'm not saying like injure you, like you're out for the count or something like that, but like, something here, a little bit there. Is that probably like an accurate number?
It's pretty close. Unfortunately, with the whole motto of CrossFit, constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity, it's that high intensity part that gets a lot of people, and it's usually the ego that kind of drives
Yeah. Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. When someone is in a group of individuals and they see someone that they feel like they should be competing with, or be a little more fit than, or someone who's a little younger than them, or
Uh-huh.
so the ego kind of drives that, but it also kind of highlights some past injuries and issues. CrossFit's not a perfect training regimen. Nothing is, as a matter of
I would
fact.
say
I
probably
don't
nothing
care.
is, right.
Yeah, I don't care what boot camp you do. I don't care which group you join. You can go running, you can go biking. Something's going to flare up if you use that muscle group or that joint, if you move from that joint a lot, simply because I mean, we're humans, right? All
Right.
tissue gets to the point where it gets inflamed, it gets irritated, and unfortunately, with CrossFit, the high intensity is a little bit of that defining factor there with that.
I'm going to add two things. So one, I must not have an ego because when I go and do CrossFit with you guys, I'm perfectly okay saying like, wow, everyone here can outlift me or do better than me. So phew, right. No ego. Right.
Yeah.
The other one, my brain just went dead. Oh, that's fine. Shoot, what did you just say?
So with the
Oh, the
intensity
injury. I'm so sorry. Okay,
and
yes.
the
All right,
injury
dude.
rate,
Wow,
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
wow. What I tell people is that you're gonna hurt yourself either way, right? If you put yourself through the meat grinder of a fitness lifestyle, whether that's CrossFit or running, you're going to cause wear and tear on your body, but you're also going to cause wear and tear on your body with a sedentary lifestyle, right?
Mhm.
So I would much rather you cause that wear and tear exercising, which is a whole lot easier to long
Yeah,
term,
yeah.
chronic wise, than the sedentary lifestyle, which is doing so much more damage elsewhere.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I'll put it to you like this, and I like to tell people this often. Would you rather go see a doctor for some arthritis and some joint or muscle issues, or would you rather go to the cardiologist to get set up
Oh,
for a heart surgery, or
yeah. I'll go to that
have
joint
to go
doc
see
all
a
day long.
doctor because
Yeah.
your blood sugar's out of control, and next thing you know, you're borderline diabetic, or you are full blown diabetic, and next thing you know, you're having to do injections and you're having to constantly test your blood. So I mean, it's one of those things. I guess you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah. Preach
I
it, man. That's exactly it. No, that is exactly what I think people need to hear.
I would much rather work with someone and someone say, "Oh man, my shoulder's been acting up," and I say, "Cool, no more overhead movements. Let's start to work on some rehab and
Yeah.
some stability work with that joint. We'll do a little bit of core work. You can still train the lower body, and you can do some
Yeah.
cardiovascular endurance things, some cardio. But let's just don't go crazy overhead." And they go, "Cool." Versus someone that comes in as like, "Yeah, my doctor told me I can't get my heart rate above 100 because I'm so out of shape at this point."
Yeah.
So I mean. It's one of those things. Use your body and enjoy it because we're here a definite amount of time. We may not know what that is, but I would
Right.
much rather at 65 or 70, 75 look back and go, man, I remember that time that I hiked part of the Appalachian Trail and I had a blast, rather than, yeah, man, I've been stuck on my back in this hospital bed for 3 months now because I'm just not recovering well because my body doesn't have the
Sure.
capacity to recover.
And honestly, how memorable is it to say like, oh, I remember that summer I spent binge watching Netflix? right? Like
Right,
you're not going to remember
yeah,
that.
I
Like
know,
3 months later,
yeah,
you may remember Lion
yeah,
King, or not Lion King, Tiger King, excuse me.
yeah. Well, everybody remembers Tiger King.
Dude, I never
It's like
watched
a
it.
train
I'll
wreck,
admit,
really.
I
You
never
can't
watched
get
it. Okay,
away.
I'm glad I missed
Yeah.
that train wreck. But what you were just saying, I mean, you can hurt your shoulder, or you can even hurt your low back, but that still is going to leave about 95% of your body that's perfectly healthy and that you can exercise and that you can lift.
Oh yeah, there's so much, and I get people often that say, well, my back is hurting, and my doctor said I shouldn't do any kind of exercise. Get a different doctor, simply because that's probably the same doctor that goes, here, take this pill and it'll help fix that issue.
Yeah. Not to mention
You-
exercise can fix just about any musculoskeletal
Proper exercise,
disorder.
yeah.
Proper,
That's
yeah.
one thing that I really pride myself on in the way I run my business is any individual that comes to us without having some significant training experience, we put them through what's called the FMS. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
And with the FMS, we do a screen to see how their body moves, to see where they're stable, where they're not, or where they're unstable, where they lack some flexibility, mobility, and we put them through that screen. And for the rest of the on-ramp that we do with them, we start to introduce these exercises that help their body, their brain and their body connect so that they more properly engage their core, so that they are more able to stabilize at the joint well, so that they're more able to get a good full range of motion more safely. So, it's one thing that I take a lot of pride in with my gym, rather than going, cool, thanks for joining my gym. Now we're going to do a bunch of burpees and we're going to walk on our hands over here. We're going to take a dumbbell, we're going to snatch it overhead. We're going to try to hold the bar in an overhead squat. You can go zero to extreme too quickly, and that's where that injury is a lot more readily going to happen. But it's unavoidable. I mean, I've had injuries in the past. I've been doing this 12 years now, and I mean, things happen and you can't really avoid it, like you had said. But exercise can often, if you get injured from exercise, you can often use exercise to help recover from injury.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You're leading into it perfectly. Can you tell us some of the times that you have been injured? I guess more of your memorable injuries, because I know you have little things here and there all the time. And then what kind of strategies that you use to come out the other side?
Sure. So I've been, again, doing this for about 12 years, doing CrossFit for about 12 years. And there was a span of time where I was really big on Olympic weightlifting, the snatch and the clean and jerk. And, I'd often go in and lift up to a 1-rep max in those lifts, and squatting, pressing, heavy pulls and deadlifts and things. So, your body really goes through a lot of strains and sprains and pulls and things. I've been lucky. I've never had a major tear. But when you're doing things where you're pulling or pushing or squatting and it's super heavy and you feel this sharp pain, and then that muscle is really mad at you for the next couple of days, you really got to take a step back and say, man, maybe I should avoid squatting, pushing, pulling, going overhead, and doing things that are going to irritate that joint even more. So there was this one time in weightlifting, it was just a training session. And during a pull, I'd caught the bar on a clean and I'd kind of leaned forwards. So naturally, my upper back started to round. So I started to shrug to pull the bar back up on my shoulders. And when I did, something pulled in my upper right back, right? My trap area, somewhere around there. And for the next 2 weeks, I literally couldn't do any pushing or pulling with that arm, much less do anything overhead. So I was stuck in the case where I was like, man, what am I going to do? How can I train? And during that span of time, I focused on my squat and my lower body. And a lot of people are like, oh, cool. You had an injury. Why didn't you just rest completely and get over it better? Well, I didn't have to. I didn't need to use my arms to squat. We actually have a bar called a safety squat bar that you can hold the handle. And I don't have to reach back to grab the bar. And I don't have to front rack, rotate at my shoulder to grab the bar. it's sitting on my shoulders, and I'm holding handles right here, so I'm not moving much at my shoulder.
Sure.
And I could do a lot of lower body things like squatting, lunging, plyometrics and jumping, stability work, hinging movements to help train my body. So, that was just one example. And honestly, recently I had a major issue when I racked my ankle bone pretty bad. Now, even to this day, that was about a year ago, last November about this time. And even to this day now, if I do too much running or jumping, if I do too much heavy lifting on the foot, just because my foot's stabilizing all that weight or the impact from that, the arch of my foot hurts. So even to this day, I'm suffering from that. And it was because I didn't take my own medicine. I didn't wait long enough before I got back into training. I waited about 2 weeks, and then I started doing some stability work, and then I started did that for about a week kind of after, and then I started lifting, squatting again. And it was probably too much too soon. And, it's just one of those lessons learned. I still do some stability work, still do some stretching and mobility and things. But my foot still suffers from that. And because of my foot, my left shoulder is now an issue.
Exactly.
So, your body balances across. So, if you don't do it correctly, then you're going to have a lot more issues down the road. And just take it from me. You really need to take 2 steps back and take a look at what you're going to do, because it's going to affect what you want to do in the future to come.
So on that note, then, like, what do you feel like are some of like the best practices to follow in recovery from an injury? So like the first thing that kind of came to my mind is almost like how to prevent an injury to begin with. It's having the right mechanics. It's making sure that you don't overload or overstress the system, and then making sure that you have enough recovery time. And
Absolutely,
one of the most important things of recovery that people are like, they're trying to like outsmart themselves, right? Like flow tank and infrared and what supplement can I take? Like, sure, this is all like really cool, but the number 1 and number 2 most important parts of recovery is just getting enough sleep and getting enough food and water.
Yeah. So if I had to make any recommendation, sleep is probably up there at the top of the list.
Right.
Just because scientifically that's when our body recovers most, is during our sleep. And a lot of people are like, I get about like 5 or 6 hours sleep. I go to bed at midnight and I get up about 5 or 6.
I'm useless after 9 anyways.
Do that. And it's really, it doesn't help your case. So sleep would be up the top of that. And then good diet, nutrition. Your diet can either promote inflammation in the body, or it can promote anti-inflammatory scenarios in the body. So, if I'm having a lot of foods that are higher glycemic, a lot of sugars and things, it really actually keeps the body fairly inflamed. Versus if I'm having things with antioxidants, things with good healthy fats that are going to help eliminate a lot of the issues, the joint inflammation, the muscle tissue inflammation, and all that. So, sleep and nutrition, as much as everybody, like the young kids especially, are like, whatever, I'm young, I'll be all right. For now.
For now.
But it really is going to matter in the future that, the better you eat now, the more you create the habits and the structure to help your life in the future. Sleep and nutrition is vital, man, for sure.
I literally just shot another interview yesterday with the nutritionist Leslie Williams on inflammatory and anti-inflammatory diet and how that influences your pain.
Absolutely.
So that's perfect timing.
You talk to older adults and they talk about their hips hurting, their knees hurting. I do some walking and all that. Well, are you stretching? Cool. What's your diet like? And a lot of times people think that less is more. If I eat less, what'd you have for breakfast? Some coffee, some black coffee. Okay. What else?
Or at least some yogurt in there or something.
Like you gotta fuel your activity. You've got to fuel your body's recovery, right?
Yeah.
So less is not always more with recovery.
More is also not always more.
Yeah, more is not always more.
Right. Perfect, Matt. Got to get that
Yeah, you got to
Goldilocks in
find
that
the right.
recovery. Right.
Yeah, you got to find that right level. But I mean, that's where consult someone who knows more than yourself.
Mhm.
Even to this day, and some of the things that I get into, I always talk to someone who knows more than me because Lord knows I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything. I am more than willing to get some advice from someone. I am more than willing to listen, to learn, and I mean, it's one of those things. You got to put in the effort to get the information to improve your situation versus thinking you know everything and going on a whim or going on just something that you read on the internet or something. I mean, talk to someone that knows a little bit more.
I'm a research junkie. I love learning, like asking people and looking it up and doing my own like Google
Yeah,
research. I'm like a
sure.
PhD in like Google. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, I guess kind of like last big question. Then how should people manage their expectations about timeline to return to what they were doing before? I know it totally depends on the injury, right? Like grade 1 versus
Yeah.
like grade 3 sprain strain, right?
Yeah.
Or something small versus something large. So I get that it totally does, that it totally depends. But how do you help people or explain to people how they should manage their expectations of return to play?
Well, it like you said, depending on the level of the injury, how drastic or how challenging that injury makes the rest of life. It's gonna change a lot of the aspect of how recovery goes along. But usually the first within an initial injury is like 2 to 4 weeks. And I know it's
Sure.
hard for people to deal with, but
It's
depending on how
especially hard for CrossFitters. CrossFitters do not
yeah.
like sitting on the sideline.
No, not at all.
No.
But initially 2 to 4 weeks, just to kind of assess where you need to go from there, because the first couple of days it's in kind of an acute stage of the injury.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how bad the injury is. If you haven't already gone to a doctor, you can kind of determine from there, like, okay, I really need to see someone about this, or okay, well, it's starting to ease up. The swelling's going down. It's getting a little bit better. And then, after that acute stage, depending on your depth of knowledge or your experience, you can start to move a little bit more, and often just mobilization, moving blood flow will help loosen the stiffness of the injury or the tightness. After about 2 weeks, I certainly don't recommend going under any resistance or anything like that. But after those 2 weeks, it's a pretty good determination of, all right, this is a bad injury. I need to go see someone. Just with more time, things slowly improve. I would always recommend 2 to 4 weeks of if not complete rest, minimal movement of the injured area, just to know where you need to go from there. And then after that, depending on how you've been assessed, depending on what's recommended by a health professional, light, low intensity, minimal resistance, just to again mobilize and move the area, get blood flow in the area. And it's hard to give a specific time frame.
Yeah,
But
I mean, sorry.
Like
Yeah,
I would say like 2 to 3 months, is a good time frame of, depending on what was injured and how badly it was injured. I think generally most injuries are around a 2 to 3 month of recovery time, and then you can slowly start to add more weight, more intensity.
Mm-hmm.
For me. Especially for my ankle, my most recent injury that happened last November. I went 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks, I started loading it and working on a little bit of stability. And that was about 4 weeks that I really started to go heavy in my squats again. And I really probably should have gave it 4 more weeks, and I probably wouldn't be having nearly the issue that I have right now.
Gotcha. I'm going to share with you something called the baseline activity tool.
Sure.
Remind me to bring that by. That is something that comes from a book called from Annie O'Connor, like the Guide to Classifying Pain. And it deals with acute injuries, like exactly what we're talking about and how best to progress them. So remind me to drop that off at
Sure.
at
Absolutely.
the gym. All right. Well, Scott, thank you so much. First of all, how can people learn more about what you're doing?
You can go to CrossFit584.com. We have a free trial where people can come in, and we'll set up a time that you can come in and kind of experience a little bit of what we do, kind of the process of the way we do things. And then we'll go from there and decide if this is something you want to look into and kind of go a little more in depth with and potentially have a membership with us here. And if not, it's cool. Not everybody wants to do CrossFit. It's cool. And we also have our social media outlets, CrossFit 584, our Facebook and Instagram. And, feel free to reach out, call me, text me, drop by the gym. More than willing to talk with people, discuss options and opportunities. And the biggest thing is I just want people to move better and feel better,
Amen to that. Amen to that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you having me on and talking again, dude. Need to see you a little bit more up close, not too close, but
wearing masks. Yeah, I got you. All right. Sounds good, man. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care, Andy.
You too.